abracadabra, alakazam, simsalabim, hocus pocus. No magic has ever been performed without being accompanied by some razzly-dazzly magic words. And once magic was performed for the first time, it needed a word, a very special word, to set it apart from all of the other non-magical acts humans need to perform to survive. There probably isn't a device, gadget, concept, or invention that you use today that doesn't have its roots in ancient Mesopotamia. Necessity is the mother of invention, so as soon as humans needed anything, magic was invented. Along with the wheel, the calendar, writing, and agriculture, the ancient Mesopotamians invented magic. They also invented its fancy, razzly-dazzly name, magia. May use this word, magia, to describe all of the enchanting symbolic gestures and the recitations they performed. It was in the cradle of civilization that spells and rituals and incantations intended to cause some kind of change in a person or an object or situation were refined, formalized, and codified into an established body of beliefs and practices. There, in that charmed cradle, experts in magic, priests, healers, exorcists, the apisu, the mamasu, the magicians were appointed and given special status to oversee and carry out these rituals. Most importantly, and to our benefit, the esoteric knowledge and protocols for these rituals were recorded for transmission to others and later generations for the first time by the ancient Mesopotamians, thanks to their invention of a very permanent, almost indelible system of writing on stone and clay tablets. So, to become well-versed and proficient in the ways of magic, it may help to learn how to walk like an Egyptian, but everything the Egyptians knew about magic, they imported from the ancient Mesopotamians. The Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Assyrians, and the Babylonians of the world's first cities, like Eridu, Uruk, Ur, Sumer, Babylon, and Nineveh. Given the level of sophistication of the magic practiced by the ancient Mesopotamians, it is little wonder that later generations of occultists, even our contemporaries, would reach all the way back to the ancient Near East, to the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, and that land between the two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, to uncover and rediscover the secrets of divination, magic, witchcraft, and alchemy. Whether or not the ancient Mesopotamians were the original inventors of the specific forms of divination, magic, and witchcraft attributed to them, it's indisputable that Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, and Babylonian occult practitioners were fastidious note-takers, recording the minute details of their recitations and rituals in stone on these nearly indestructible clay tablets. Clay tablets that once discovered by generations could be decoded, drawn from, emulated, and expanded in the occultic practices we know today. The decoding of these clay cuneiform tablets has offered vivid insights into the occult, magical practices of these civilizations. Their most striking revelation is that for the ancient Sumerians, Assyrians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and even the Egyptians, magic, divination, and witchcraft were both their science and their religion. Our greatest epiphany from decoding, deciphering, and studying these tablets is that magic was the framing principle of all phenomena in the environment, the filter, the lens through which all events were observed and interpreted by the ancient Mesopotamians. What leaps from the surface of these tablets is the fact of the intertwined nature of magic and everyday life. That magic was the dominant religion and pervaded every nook and cranny, every facet of life, from the mundane to the sacred, from baking bread to burying the dead. The tablets also reveal that the ancient Mesopotamians and later the Egyptians developed their own understanding of cause and effect relations and made their own connections between specific events, particular phenomena, and observed outcomes. They simply connected the dots between these actions and reactions slightly differently than we do today. In this way, our Mesopotamian ancestors were very astute observers of the world around them, studying the earth, its creatures, flora and fauna, and especially celestial entities such as planets and the stars, searching for predictable patterns from which to divine the outcomes of future events, seeing signs, portents, omens in the movement and alignment of celestial bodies, the spread of sickness and disease, the behavior of animals and birds. Here, in the magic practiced by our early ancestors, we find the core, timeless elements of magic as practiced across the ages. Symbolic gestures performed in sync with the recitation of spells or incantations by an expert in the working of magic, someone well versed in the existing body of knowledge of magic, with all of these activities aimed at altering a current or future situation, event, object, or person in some particular way. Magic, rituals that seek to transform objects and events, can be practiced in a vast variety of ways. While magic, divination, and witchcraft are generally taboo in modern cultures, having been displaced by scientific and religious paradigms that ridicule or forbid their practice. In ancient Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, magic was the go-to method for dealing with any and all of life's problems, whether for broken, unrequited relationships, failed crops, illness, grief, or attacks by your enemies. within Mesopotamian cultures, specific techniques, magic texts of spells, incantations, prayers, potions, and symbols were developed and applied by practitioners of magic at all levels, from professional magicians employed by the king down to magicians ministering to the troubles and vexations of the common people afflicted by mamito, the Akkadian word for curse. A common reason ancient Mesopotamians would call upon magic for assistance was in removing and breaking curses, because in the minds of ancient Mesopotamians, accidental transgressions and sins would almost inevitably result in the removal of the goddesses and the gods' protection, opening them up to curses. In addition to being attributed to curses, unexplained, unexpected, and undesirable events were often believed to be caused by vindictive, spiteful ghosts of deceased ancestors who felt they had been wronged in life or neglected by the living after death. Or curses could be brought on by demons, or even by witches, human sorcerers, practicing magic and unethical ways to cause harm to another human. Because magic was a central guiding principle of life in ancient Mesopotamia, and because practitioners of magic were needed to attend to such a diverse set of needs and demands at all levels of society, magicians were trained in several specialized capacities in order to be able to function simultaneously as therapists, doctors, exorcists, priests, and scientists. According to the records left in Sumerian and Akkadian cuneiform clay tablets, the most common form of magic was performed by the asipu, or the masmasu, the exorcists. The existing records of asiputu, or exorcistic lore, are extensive and, according to Babylonian mythology, were passed down from the creation of the earth by the god of wisdom and exorcism, Enki. Within this body of exorcistic lore, 4 types of magic are described, and prescriptions for dealing with each manifestation are offered. First, there is liminal magic, a form of white magic which shifts a person or object, physically or spiritually, from one state to another, most commonly from a state of impurity to purity, or from acolyte to initiated. Another type of magic is defensive magic, a form of white magic which draws out or deflects evil targeted at the petitioner. There is also a slightly more mystifying form of magic called aggressive magic, or grey or neutral magic, a form of forbidden magic performed to provide the petitioner with greater power, status, or some other kind of competitive advantage. One of the key tactics employed in grey magic is keeping one's enemies confused and uncertain about one's activities or intentions to weaken them. Grey magic practitioners may possess an object or person, take possession of it, even a dead person in the practice of necromancy, possess it with their own spirit in order to gain control over them or to further their own agenda. Grey magicians can also shapeshift, cast binding spells to prevent another from taking a specific action, or form magical bonds with other beings, either exchanging all or parts of their soul with these beings or establishing a psychic connection for telepathic communication. A form of sympathetic magic. Ancient Mesopotamian spells often call for stand-ins or effigies of people or entities to enact their will on the target individual. Effigies, similar to fetishes, puppets, or voodoo dolls, used in sympathetic magic by modern witches and magicians, played a central role in ancient Mesopotamian magic, designed to break or cast curses or disempower a witch or magician who has cast a spell on the petitioner. Effigies of the one responsible for a curse or possession were created from wax and burnt or submerged in water or a toxic substance to disempower them. To create a tie between the effigy and the target of the magic spell or curse, a personal item from the target, such as a lock of hair or a piece of clothing, was attached to the effigy, creating a link or tag lock that allows whatever is enacted on the effigy to also befall the target. While practitioners of white magic seek to help others by altering events, they're careful not to harm anyone in the process. Grey magic acknowledges the existence of both good and evil, working to make the world a better place by directly confronting evil, casting out evil energies or spirits, issuing curses, not just the blessings of white magic. And if necessary, all of this if necessary in their pursuit of justice. While there are few surviving records of how witchcraft or black magic was practiced in ancient Mesopotamia, most likely this is because black magic was prohibited. The recovered tablets prescribing rituals for countering witchcraft offer insights into how it may have worked or was believed to have been practiced in those cultures. Exorcism and anti-witchcraft tablets prescribe the defensive magic rituals for warding off and counteracting aggressive magic performed in violation of the ethics of magic, with the intention of harming another, namely the petitioner in the anti-witchcraft and exorcism rituals. Whether white, grey, or black magic is performed, all forms of magic operate from the belief in basic laws of magic. 1. Similarity and contagion. The belief that similar or connected things in close proximity can influence one another. 2. Imitation. The principle that guides magic rituals and the use of effigies and fetishes, based on a belief that if some event is acted out, it will indeed occur, and that objects can stand in for human, spirit, or animal targets. Finally, we have the law of correspondence. Things that have a similar appearance are thought to impact each other. For example, the walnut looks like the human brain, so it's thought to have influence over the mind. The mandrake looks like the human body and was used in healing or as a puppet, an effigy. And blood-colored foods were believed to affect human circulation. Letters exchanged between kings and their officials revealed that it was not uncommon for disagreements within the king's court to devolve into accusations of witchcraft, of black magic. Clay tablets of legal documents and treaties also reveal where and how the line was drawn between permissible and prohibited practices of magic and the prescribed legal punishments for practicing black magic, as well as the role of the gods and goddesses within these rituals, whether as part of black or white magic ceremonies. The actual spells recited by the practitioners of magic, the herbal potions they prescribed, and the specific methods they used to read the portents and omens in the stars and in nature are also laid out in these tablets, some of which are referred to as the Maklu incantations, designed around 2000 years BC by the Babylonians to counter acts of witchcraft. Eventually, under the direction of the king, a process of spell and ritual standardization occurred, with the most essential knowledge compiled in handbooks for its dissemination, as evidenced by tablets excavated from libraries in both Nineveh and Sippar. Described within these handbooks are the various types of magicians, including the supreme role performed by magicians called Ashipu, who acted as advisors to the king, as mediators between the king and the gods, and who carried out ceremonial functions as public servants, such as funerary rites for the aristocracy. Asu, or physician magicians, would often advise the Apsu in concocting and administering elixirs and potions for the sick, while Baru, the diviners working in service of Assyrian kings, were devoted to studying and interpreting signs from the goddesses and gods encoded in the changes in the skies and in nature. The predominant method of divination employed by the Baru was ecstaspy, the reading of sheep entrails, in addition to reading celestial or other phenomena such as the migration and behavior of birds to predict future events. Knowledge of these divination practices was surreptitiously passed down over several centuries. There are also ritual faience objects that were used in magic rituals, often in conjunction with recitation of texts, since it was believed that when infused with magic, these objects could independently carry out actions to protect and to intervene on behalf of those who were in control of them. There was also a very strong belief in the power of the spoken word to effect change or some kind of activity. While many of these magic objects were pocket-sized, objects as large as one or even several stories high were sculpted and placed on the perimeter of buildings, namely palaces and defensive structures, to ward off attacks. Acting as security guards outside throne rooms, storehouses, and private palace spaces stood the lamassu. Lamassu, large, winged, man, bull, lion, hybrid sculptures adorned in spiritually symbolic jewelry, as well as the mighty eagle-headed human hybrids that are found in the palace of Nimrud in Assyria, all poised to fend off any physical or spiritual attacks and to transfer the knowledge, wisdom, and power of the heavens and the wisdom of past generations to the reigning king, as evidenced by artifacts found in Ashur, Nineveh, Nimrud, and Babylon. Neo-Assyrians of more modest means, the working and middle class, emulated the king's protective strategies by fashioning for themselves clay or bronze figurines depicting hybrid creatures, gods, goddesses, and animals, especially dogs, and placing them in custom-designed boxes under the floors of their homes, the level of their home in closest contact with the underworld. These protector figurines were strategically placed in parts of the home believed to be entry points for demons and ghosts rising up from the underworld. Places like doors, windows, and hallways, even corners, because they were associated with Gula, the healing goddess and great physician. Dogs were among the most popular figurines used to ward off evil spirits. To prevent direct physical or spiritual attacks by demons and ghosts when outside of the home, and no matter where one traveled, amulets were also worn by ancient Mesopotamians of all social strata. The most popular of these amulets were those engraved with incantations appealing to the gods for protection, alongside images of Lamashtu, a demon goddess who preyed on pregnant women and infants by afflicting them with illness. These amulets also contained the face of Pazuzu, the consort of Lamashtu. Pazuzu, the wind demon, infamous for attacking humans, could be summoned and appealed to beat his wife into submission and prevent her from harming any women or children. Depending on the desired function of the amulet, their materials were chosen according to the cultural beliefs at that time and according to the specific protective and healing properties of various metals and gemstones. For the ancient Mesopotamians, few forces held as much sway over the course of their lives and the prosperity of their cities as the planets, which they worshipped and practiced devotion to as devout students of astronomy and astrology. Based on their observations, each planet was believed to have unique powers, and those powers were connected to particular precious gemstones of the same color as the planet. A precious gem was believed to have absorbed the powers possessed by its corresponding planet. In fact, the concept of birthstones, among many other things, was conceived of by the ancient Mesopotamians. from their understanding of the stars and planets, understanding gained from a lot of time spent stargazing in the 6 observatories they built across ancient Mesopotamian cities. What they understood was that the color of each planet, the sun and the moon, could be determined. And since the sun was observed to be red, it may have been associated with precious red gemstones like the ruby, red garnet, and red tourmaline. The white moon with pearls, moonstone, coral, white sardonyx or ivory. Mercury with green stones like emeralds, jade, green onyx or green tourmaline. Venus with pearls, crystal or colorless quartz. And the red planet Mars with carnelian, jasper, red agate or bloodstone. Jupiter with yellow sapphire or yellow topaz, and Saturn with blue stones like lapis lazuli, the most precious of all, chalcedony, sapphire, or amethyst. So whether we acknowledge and own it or not, divination, magic, witchcraft, and alchemy are very much in our DNA, inherited, passed down from our earliest human ancestors. The secret knowledge and wisdom acquired in the caves and on the hunt of how to influence the spirits and forces that control everything around us was packed up in our travel cases and carried with us as we migrated from the plains of Africa to the fertile crescent of the lands where the Tigris and Euphrates flowed together. It was there, along the fertile banks of these rivers, where the wheel, agriculture, and the writing were invented, all of these being just other forms of magic. That magic itself was invented and came into its own. Thus, so if we are to understand and study the secrets of magic, we must travel back to that land, along the fertile banks of these rivers, in order to know its mysteries, its secrets,